Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Lucan. I'm with Illinois State Board of Education. I'd like to welcome you today for our webinar on the Career Pathway Endorsement Updated Approval Process. I'm here, obviously, representing the State Board of Education. I'll give you a little bit of my background. Prior to, that'll be 4 years with ISB coming up this February. Prior to that, I was a school counselor for 15 years, and then prior to that, I was a band director. And when I came into the role at ISB, for those of you who don't know me, I've seen a lot of you, a lot of familiar faces as you were popping in today on the work with pathway endorsements. But when I started at ISB, this was just beginning as far as the whole conversation on pathway endorsements and so forth. So since then, I've been working in the platform that we currently have and working with a lot of you on building pathway endorsements. So I'm very excited, something I'm very passionate about with this work. With us today, I have support from our NIU Illinois CTE project team, which is part of the Illinois P20 network. So you'll see some of their faces popped up as well. And I potentially could have some ISB CTE here with us. I know that our limit in this Zoom actually was quickly approaching, so I don't know if we'll have everyone here today. But I'm very, very excited to know that we had the full 300 register for this. And the premise of this really, truly, it came about from all of your input. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So we do have hopefully some time for questions. As we go through this, feel free to use the chat. The NIU team is going to be monitoring that for me so that we can get those questions addressed. If we are unable to answer the question, we will be creating a document to answer those questions for you, so you have access to that. So we will go ahead and get started. And again, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jason, for the, I'm going to call you out on that, for the music to start off our day. That was lovely. So just a brief overview of some items, and then we'll get into the different components and kind of why we are here today. So legislative overview, you've got in 2016, the PWR Act identified the 4 components and then was updated in 2018. But most significantly for us in our conversation today was in 2022, the House Bill 3296, which called out specifics on the PACE framework as well as the pathway endorsement. So PACE framework adoption by the schools and by the state by this year, really for the state to have that. But the pathway endorsements, as you recall, you have to have, school districts have to have at least one endorsement in place by 2027, meaning that the graduating class of 2027 could potentially earn that endorsement. And then 2 endorsements in 2029 and 3 endorsements in 2031. I always want to say 3031, but that's way off there. So 2031, and with some ruling on small schools. So that would apply to those districts that have schools in grades 9 through 12 with an enrollment of 350 students or more. And we actually calculate that enrollment number based on this year's enrollment numbers. So you should have a clear idea of if you would fall into that category of having to create 3 pathway endorsement opportunities for that graduating class. By the end of this year, we can tell you that. So the endorsement implementation timeline began in 1920, fiscal year 20, and then it's continued, and we continue to grow. As it goes now, you are required to enter information on the endorsements within the current PWR pathway endorsement online database. That system was built out prior to it being transferred over to ISB. We maintain that system in its current format, have not done very many updates to that, but know that those things need to be done. So as a result, when we took a look at it, we decided that we are going to develop a new integrated system within IWAS so that you have access to it, easier access, and easily entering data that can then be pulled right into SIS for some of those reporting issues. So that's very exciting. That's something that I continue to work on every week with our team to get that going. They've got the preliminary and it looks really nice. So I'm very excited about that. And part of the presentation today, I will be talking about what that new system will require as far as data input and how you can use the current system to make sure you have that information so we can do an easier data transfer. Even if it is a lot of copy and pasting, you would still have that information available for you. So why now? You look back at the timeline, and why now are we creating these rules for the pathway endorsement? So we are using these to define those district plans, the individual student requirements for earning the endorsement. Those are the different types of rules that we are developing now, because it is two unique situations. So you actually submit your plan, but then how do you know if that student has actually earned that endorsement based on your plan? So there's different criteria for that. So that's why we have decided to write two separate rules. The House bill requires that implementation, as we talked about, or the option to opt out. And then there's a significant increase in applicants. I think that when I last looked last night, we are up to 150 school districts that have sent in applications to start the process. Doesn't mean they're issuing them, but it means they're starting the process to build. And with my office hours and things like that, I have tons and tons of districts dropping in or emails about, well, would this count? Could this work? What does it look like for us? So within that growing number, we knew that we needed to have rules that will help to answer and provide that guidance. Hold on, I've lost my, well, we'll go this way. Okay, so again, it's also going to address the issues of equity in that implementation and the outcomes, consistency across the state, no matter the size of that district and what it can look like for them. It's going to align with the letter and the spirit of the legislation and address the needs, again, of those diverse districts statewide. And we do have fair representation across the state already with that 150 applicants that I have. So it's a unique experience for everyone, but yet there are a lot of commonalities, and we want this to be able to be fair, to be quality when we look at these. So our vision for the college and career pathway endorsements is of quality for individual students rather than the quantity that the schools are for the schools and districts. And in achieving this goal, the college and career pathway endorsements should raise the quality, the relevance, and the authenticity of instruction for all students and increase the opportunities for all students to learn and become proficient with the essential skills. Resources, which we've talked about a little bit, but I want to update you on a few things. So you have a screenshot there of the current pathway endorsement page. An entire page it is dedicated to our endorsements. It is in the process of being updated. So the first bullet point, the updated PWR Act platform guidebook, and I actually recorded a video of me walking through, well, clicking through the current platform that we have and showing how to enter all the information and data, along with certain sections that'll be required in the new platform and how that can be integrated into the current platform. So that video has been sent off to our IT team, and they are converting that for being able to publish on our website. I'm hoping that that will be there for you. If you look at the screen, under resources, right now it says web-based tool guidebook. So that will be replaced with the updated PWR Act platform guidebook, as well as a link to the video. For those districts that are just starting out, or if you want to do a review of, I get stuck in this one section, what should I do? Now you'll have an online actual reference, a video reference that you can follow along with. I will also say that many of you have participated in these, and I love them. The pathway endorsement office hours, I have those every week in a 2-hour block. In fact, I have one today. I moved it to today just in case there were questions after this, but it's today from 12 to 2. So if you're on the pathway endorsement website and you click on news and updates, you'll see the list of all of the office hours. You just click on that link and it should take you to the teams. And then I let you in and we have conversations. Sometimes I have individuals that just pop in just to see if anyone's talking about anything. We truly have learned a lot from each other. And it's a great opportunity for me to be able to write down questions and get answers for you and so forth. So there's also the Career Pathway Users Group. And so that link there provides you to, I think, the website that allows you to sign up for that user group. So you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jason, but I believe that's what that is too. And we meet once a month. And I've also included that for a lot of you that have just joined. If you've received the link, the application link from me, I also include that link in your invitation as well. So multiple opportunities for you to receive that assistance. I don't want you to feel like you're out there on your own little island going through this. So, all right, we're going to dive now into the components unless there's any questions on just that overview that I did.
Heather, can I jump in with one quick thing that's come up?
Sure.
2 times? There's a couple of questions that have come up about the opt-out, and so what I was starting to type in the chat, I want you to react to this and make sure this is accurate.
Okay.
Is we can tell everybody, as we said earlier, the actual rules are in the process of being written, and then there's a whole approval process that includes public comment that will take place. And then once the rules are fully approved, then the sub-process for how you actually would, what a district would need to do to opt out, that's when that would come into play. And so my guess, I don't want to give anybody a hard and fast time frame, but just so people aren't stressing about it in the short term, my guess is that that's no earlier than this coming summer, likely early next school year. And again, that's not a problem if you're like concerned about that. Oh, next school year, what do we do? Remember, the first required endorsements are for the graduating seniors, the graduating 12th graders in I almost said 2012. That's a long time ago. I apologize, everybody. In 2027, and so it's years in advance of that opt-out process would be there. Does that sound like a reasonable answer about the opt-out kind of expectations? Yes. Okay.
Yes,
great.
That's correct. And if you think about the time frame when we're looking at 2027, the intent is that you would have the courses in place for that graduating class of 2027. So you really, 2024, 2025 should have something if you're going to be offering those endorsements. So, and I would venture a guess that a large number of districts, and this is what we found, those that think, oh, there's no way we'll be able to do that, when they really take a look at the different components, they're nearly there with a lot of them. So I do have quite a bit of those 150 applicants that have told me that, hey, we're not ready to issue them, but we want to start building them. And that's perfect. That's exactly what this is for as well, to clarify those different components for you so that you're aware of what needs to be entered and what needs to be explained to make those quality endorsements. Excuse me. So for the different components, and we'll go through all of these here in a moment, but this is just a listing of them. You have the individual plan for post-secondary and career readiness. You have the labor market and workforce needs, the post-secondary partner, the course sequence, academic readiness, and then the professional learning experience. Let's dive into the individual plan and what that looks like. How students, so basically the overarching question is how students are supported with comprehensive post-secondary and career planning. And where is the school district in collecting and storing information for the students, and who is responsible for that work as it relates to the career planning, the post-secondary planning, and the financial aid and literacy planning? If we look at the future IWAS questions, so this would be incorporated into the app that we are currently writing for or developing for the framework. Geez, I'm all over the place for the endorsements. One of the questions you will need to ask or answer is, how are the students supported with the comprehensive post-secondary and career planning? And if you look at these questions where it talks about where are you collecting and what are the roles and responsibilities, we don't want names, it's just the positions. And those three categories of the career goals, the post-secondary plans, and the literacy planning, those are all aligned to the PACE framework. So if you had to answer that first question, for example, how are students supported? If your school has adopted the PACE framework, either the state framework or have developed your own framework, that would definitely answer that question. This is, all of their activities are aligned to our PACE framework, which is focused on that comprehensive post-secondary and career planning. So we're finding ways to link all of the legislation together and use the same terminology as we build these endorsements. So that's one of those components that's not asked within the current platform. But in the future, I have found a way for you to upload that information in the current platform. So again, there would be in the guidebook and in that video, it will show you how you can do that. And that would allow you to have that response for your endorsement. So when we transition over to the new platform, you can just copy and paste that information so you have it there. So at least the conversations are starting, and you know that this will be a requirement for not only the building of your plans, but also when we talk about the student eligibility, to ensure that the students have completed these different components, which is a required component of their pathway endorsement. So again, as I just said, I jumped ahead with that. You're not asked to answer questions about that individual plan, even though it is a requirement. And as I said, there is an opportunity in the current platform, the PWR platform, for you to upload that information, both as a file, but then also in the description of something, you could put that in there so you have that text. So those conversations are still occurring, and knowing that you will need to answer those questions as we move forward. And that is something that's actually been brought up quite a bit. How do we submit the individual plan for that student? What does that look like? What kind of evidence do you need, meaning ISB? And so this addresses that for us, to be able to have you outline the steps that you are taking and the involvement that the students have in all of that post-secondary planning. Labor market and workforce needs. Broadly describe the labor market workforce needs to the State Board of Ed in the career pathway in which the endorsement is being offered. So, and part of that, the statute talks about the fact that the has to have a recertification to provide evidence that it is still aligned. Right now, there's no way to unsubmit and then resubmit your approved pathway endorsement. So at this point, you submitting your annual report each year will assure me that your pathway is still valid, and that is what the coursework that's happening, and that it's still in alignment with the labor market need. In the new system, I do know that we're going to have that option that every year they will unlock, and then you will be able to either edit or just click a button and say, yep, this is still good to go. This looks good for all of those components. So that's just something new on that. Okay, so where do we get the information to provide that evidence, to do our research, to be able to write that summative statement regarding the need? So we have this broken down into 3 areas. So the first arrow that's there is at the state level, and we've provided links there for how you can get that information. Then it goes down to the region level, and then also the local level. So that's information that you can use, and you can enter text and information as it says there in the box, which talks about how you determine that need for that career pathway and that pathway endorsement. And then here's an example for you. I will not read that to you. I think you can, I'll give you a second to read through that. But it just gives you, when we talk about what type of evidence will we need to have in the future, and I'll go into that in just a second on the next slide. This provides information from actual data that shows evidence of why this area would be offering a nursing, well, it's really the health and science technology endorsement with a focus on that nursing. So the future question that will be asked is to broadly describe that workforce need to ISB in the pathway endorsement in which an endorsement is being offered. And currently in the system, and this is just a screenshot of the platform, you have to upload resources, which we provide you, again, this link there, and then the in-demand applications you would just list out. The goal in the way that the platform is currently being utilized, you have your resources, that little X there. You need to enter something in there for it to turn to a green check mark so that your plan is valid and you could submit to ISB. But this is the opportunity here where it says resources. And again, the guidebook and the video will walk you through this, where you can answer that question from the slide before about broadly described into a Word document or a PDF, save it, upload it under resources, and I give you specifics as how you need to title that. And then also in the description, you can copy and paste that as well, so that when we move to the new Iowa system, you will have that language that you can copy and paste. I cannot promise, nor will I promise, that that part of the data will transfer, but at least you have it. You've got the conversations about it, and you have that answer. This is another part in the resources where I would recommend those questions that we talked about before, that I showed you before regarding the individual plan, the individual student plan. This is another opportunity for you to do a file upload and then also copy that text into the description of that activity. And I give you specific ways to name that. So that's just one example of a way to kind of think ahead of what's going to need to be answered as we make that transition into the new system. Then you have it all there as you're building your plans or as you go back through and review your plans. Post-secondary partners. So you are to name one or more post-secondary institutions in the career pathway, and then list any credentials that will result in coordination with that partner. And you can include the bachelor's, associate's, apprenticeship, and so forth, college certificate, industry credential. So here's some examples that we have. So a dual credit course that are included in the IT pathway from the local community college, say John A. Logan, that leads to a specific associate's degree, an associate's in applied science and cybersecurity. So that would represent alignment with one institution regionally in the career pathway. Here's another example. This is with accounting. They're part of a pathway course sequence that are transferable for Harper College. And then a second partner in this would be Northern, which offers a Bachelor of Science in Accountancy degree that leads to licensure as a CPA. So that's, again, alignment within two institutions regionally in that specific career pathway. So you do have the opportunity to identify both of those colleges, and so that you've got that on there. So the future questions, what you'll have to answer, and it's very similar to what you are doing now in the current platform, it has to be aligned to one or more post-secondary institutions in that pathway with or without a formal partnership. And then you are to name that post-secondary partner and list any credentials that will result. And you can list multiple credentials. And so that's been a question that's come up before, even in the current platform. So I'll talk about that right here. So in your current system, this is what it looks like. So you would click on that add institution and the institution name, and then once you identify the institution in the dropdown, it then does a dropdown of the programs that are associated with that institution. And then on top of that, it's the credential after that. So this is one area where in the current system, anyone that has used the PWR system if they've entered information about the institution, about the program, about the credentials, it's in there for you to select. You may, however, have to add some of those programs and credentials in there. And I, again, walk you through that in the new guidebook, and it's in the current guidebook as well, of exactly how you need to do that. And in the current system, it asks for that math gateway and the English gateway. We don't need those. We don't need that information. What is more what I really need, what ISB really needs, is more on the post-secondary program itself. Which institution are you working with? What's the program, and what's the credential that it would lead to? That really shows that transition and how it ties into what pathway you're offering. So for the math and the English gateway, you can get by with just an NA in those two sections. Again, the goal is to get that checkbox to be green. So you do have to enter some data in there, but you don't have to worry about adding the math and English gateway courses to that. Just the institution and program and credential will be significant for us, and that's all that we need to have. So that's just another little update there within the current platform. Okay, course sequence. So the minimum 2 years, which is the equivalent of 4 semesters, and then also the 6 early college credit hours. And the key questions you need to ask yourself: do the courses in that course sequence teach the students skills and/or content that they need to use in that career pathway? And do the courses in the course sequence help the students learn about what the actual work is like and help them to determine if this type of work aligns with their interests? Those are the key questions when you're looking at your course sequence as it relates to that career pathway. So the course sequence, it's a career pathway focused course sequence for all students completing that endorsement. There could be multiple course sequence available, options available, and each one must be uniquely recorded. So what that means is, if we take a look at, say, finance and business, you could have a marketing, and you could have an accounting, and you could have just a finance area. Each one of those career pathways needs to be built out separately, even though they're all going to be receiving the same type of pathway endorsement. That's how the new system is going to be set up, and that actually assists with approval for those different pathways. If you have them all listed under just say, finance and business, and you have to change something in one of them, then you have to resubmit, and things. I may not be able to approve the entire thing. So you really need to divvy those out and have it be, you will have the opportunity to select what's the name of your career plan. That's career pathway plan, and then which endorsement does it fall under. So I would expect to see perhaps multiple endorsement areas, but the title of that actually career pathway would be different for all of those as it relates to which endorsement area they're in. And then you would need to have a minimum of 2 years or the equivalent of those 4 semesters, college credit equivalent, the opportunity to earn that up to a minimum of 6. And then for the competency-based districts, you would determine the equivalent number of semesters. That's a big one. I think this is one that we get a lot of questions on. Are there any questions? We can pause real quick and do that. I see Jason typing a lot. So I see the chat numbers going up. So I'm like, okay, wait, do we need to clarify something?
So I think a couple of things. Heather, we're getting into some of the questions about what early college credit coursework counts within the endorsement. Okay. I guess one of the things I will share with everybody, if it's okay to help maybe set the stage for you, is sure. This is something that Heather is helping people navigate, and that this is one of the benefits of the rulemaking process for all of us that work in school districts. And I count myself among you, even though I'm not currently working in a school district at the moment. And so that will help clarify some of this. And even then, there may still be individual questions about alignment, but the rulemaking process will help with that moving forward. And so that's kind of the call out. But if you want to talk about, I did answer. One thing I did throw in the chat just to clarify is that in general in Illinois, early college credit includes, and remember, we look at early college credit for a variety of different reasons. Early college credit includes dual credit, dual enrollment, articulated credit, advanced placement, and international baccalaureate. And so those are all the categories of early college credit. In the case of the career pathway course sequence, the alignment with the pathway is another critical feature. It's not just early college credit on its own that can be part of the course sequence. So Heather?
Yes, that is correct. Okay. Again, when you're looking at your course sequence, and I think that this works exactly with what Jason was getting at there, we will be including in the future system, in the Iowa system, a response to these questions. So that I think that will help to guide the conversation on can you answer this, and what does this actually do, this course sequence. Do the courses in the sequence help students learn about what the actual work is like and help them to determine if this type of work aligns with their interests? And do those courses teach the students skills and or content that they need to use in the entry-level employment and career-focused post-secondary courses in the career pathway? So that is one of the reasons we've included the addition of those questions to help clarify that. So is this relevant? Is this course sequence, what we've selected for the students to take, is it relevant to the career pathway that they are working within? So in the future, Iowa's questions, a lot of this is very similar to what you're already inputting now. You would have the course name, you would have the student, the SIS course code, our state course code for that. You would have the course duration, the course credits, where that course is being delivered, so where that's happening. I get that question a lot. I think I'll just throw that out there now while I have all of you here. I get that question a lot about, well, the Area Career Center, for example, and we've got a slide for them in just a second, but that Area Career Center, it's happening there. So shouldn't the Career Center be the one issuing the endorsement? So keep in mind that the endorsement has to come at the district level. They can take those courses at the Career Center, and that absolutely counts in that course sequence. So it's not really, I don't want to say it's not important, but really, we're not looking so much at where they're taking it, but we just want to know the location, but really, is it part of that sequence itself? And again, answering those questions. So it's absolutely fine that they can be taken elsewhere and be counted in the district's pathway plan for that. Early college credit, and I know that Jason just spoke on that, what the type of credit is available is there. And then again, that response to those questions. How does the course teach the skills, and how does this course help students learn what the actual work is? So those are questions that will need to be answered as you are building your courses for that in the future system. So pretty much everything is the same except for those last two questions. So now you'll get a little more specific and ensure that those courses are actually teaching those skills, and what the students are learning helps them to determine if that aligns with their interests. So area career centers, get questions on this all the time as well. So we understand that it can be a more compressed time frame possible for those situations, and the intensity of the experience and the time. But often for the career centers, the students are there for a longer period of time. They may be there for a whole 3-hour block, an hour and a half, whatever that may be, what it looks like for you in your areas. So we recognize that the equivalent of those 4 semesters of coursework could really equal, 2 courses each semester. So they're basically getting through that in 1 year. So that's something that we wanted to call out specifically for the career centers. I know that they were worried about those things, and so we recognize that. In the current system, as you can see here, it's very similar to what we're asking for when we move towards the new system. You do have to provide the course name. You do have to provide the state course code. That allows for some validation on our end to be able to check. So when you send in, say, the list of students that have achieved a certain pathway, we could go into our system and see if they've taken the classes or combination of classes needed. So that's why it's crucial to have that ISB code. I will tell you that the current system, we have not been able to update the current courses as it relates to our ISB state course codes. So it's much better, and I've got that in the guidebook as well. Enter in the course name, what you're calling it is fine, and then verify that that is the correct ISB code. If you hit search courses right now, it will show you a list of all the ISB courses, which is a great feature, and it will be a feature in the new one as well. My concern, again, is just that list has not been updated since we've changed over the courses in the course guide. So you'll probably need to enter that in manually for the ISB code. And that is something that we take a look at when we do a review to make sure that is in alignment. So whatever code that types in seems to go along with the description that you have there. And then you have the option for that local code. We do not need the zip code, and that's not a requirement on here either, but the course description is very important. This would be something as well if you wanted to incorporate those two questions that we know are going to be in the future, does this course or how does this course do that? You could put that in the course description, and that would again allow for easy transfer when we go into the new system. And so that's just something to consider. So you've got the number of semesters. If you click on the early college credit, you'll have to identify more, like the partnership and what course it actually counts, if it's a dual credit course and so forth, what grade typically, where it's being offered, and how it's being offered, and then if it's a required or recommended. So that's what's currently happening in the system, very similar to what you'll have in the future as well. Any questions on that? Because I still see that chat numbers going up, Jason, so I just want to make sure. Okay, academic readiness. So academic readiness is, we're going to look at aligning this with the academic college and career readiness indicators, which is another area that I'm deeply involved in with communications on that. So early college credit courses aligned with that college and career readiness indicators, successful completion of approved transitional instruction coursework, or other measures as defined by its partnering post-secondary institution. So SAT scores or GPA or passing grades in specific English, math, and courses and so forth. We talk about academic readiness currently. I think if we go to the next one. Okay, so in the current system, it's listed as transitional support. And in the new form, there's not going to be an academic readiness question. Students will certify, they will not have to list out the courses, is where I'm going with that. The districts will certify that the student academic readiness is equivalent to what that they would. Let me backtrack that. I'm going to get in my head's going and I'm getting ahead of myself. With the college and career ready indicators, you have a career checklist of those that would meet that, and then you have an academic readiness component as well. And so for the pathway endorsement, in the new form, we will not be asking you to list out the courses. Your verification that the student has met the academic readiness component of the CCRI will be evidence enough that the student is academically ready. In the current system, however, we need, again, to get that X changed to a check mark. So in the current system, you will need to list out those courses that the student can take, which will show that they are ready for non-remedial math and non-remedial English. So make sure that you include that when you're doing that. But just be mindful of the fact that in the new form, there will not be an academic readiness question. When we talked at the beginning about the two kind of sets of rules, where we have rules that are for the components of the pathway endorsement, and then rules that are for student eligibility, this is where that academic readiness falls within the student eligibility. So it's not necessarily needed to approve your plans, the components, but it will definitely be a requirement when you submit your list of students, showing that they can earn an endorsement. This is where we would expect to see that information. And that's something that some of those components, if you're familiar with CCRI, some of those components we have access to as well, as far as their SAT scores or so forth. So we will identify how you can verify that the student is academically ready. I hope that makes sense on that one and clarifies some of that. Okay, professional learning experience. This is the last component within that framework. 2 career exploration activities, 2 team-based challenges, and then 60 hours of career development experience or internship. You need to report on 2 career exploration activities, provide a brief explanation of each of those activities. They can take place when the students, while the students are in grades 6 through 12, but at least one of those activities must take place in grades 9 through 12. And examples of those would be the worksite tour, the job shadowing, and so forth, career-related, service learning, mentorship. All of those are examples of those students having that interaction. It's moving from just career awareness, which is part of that continuum, just the awareness into the actual exploration. So it's a little more direct contact. It's a little more specific to that actual career area of interest for them. So team-based challenges are the next component. And so you will need to report on 2 team-based challenges that include the following components. So there needs to be an authentic problem or challenge that's identified from or in collaboration with a community business partner. You have student interactions in a meaningful way with an adult mentor with expertise in that field. You have demonstration of at least one pathway-specific technical competency and one cross-sector essential employability competency or essential skill. They work collaboratively to solve that problem, and there's a final product or a final presentation on the outcome of that team-based challenge. And all of those types of questions there would be expected to see in the description of that team-based challenge. And then the career development experience or internship of at least 60 hours. The goals of that, including learn and utilize the technical competencies, learn and utilize the essential employability competencies, understand the different aspects of that work, and understand the nature of the workplace setting. So examples of some of those career development experiences may include the work-based learning experiences, which we formerly called the cooperative education. So that's an opportunity for them. Internships, the supervised agriculture experiences, you have research apprenticeships, you have school-based enterprise, student-led enterprise, and youth apprenticeships as well. Those are just some examples. They should include, so these are things that they should include: course transcription and corresponding school credit for the experience or compensation for the student's work, or both credit and compensation. So those are options for that, but they need to include that. Then the workplace should be authentic, including but not limiting to different tasks such as timekeeping, evaluation, and so forth, that you can read there. There needs to be collaboration between the school district and the community and business partners in developing and monitoring those experiences. Feedback through a professional skills assessment on the pathway technical competencies and the cross-sector essential competencies. There should be 60 hours of time completed by the students in that working environment, either through a single career development experience or which can occur across 2 development experiences, provided that no individual experience is less than 20 hours. So they can also include, based in the school district, so long as they're authentic, the district employee fulfills the role of an industry mentor or supervisor rather than the role of a traditional classroom teacher. You could do a virtual workplace setting, authentic to the virtual working conditions. You must have that mentor or supervisor from a workplace who is an employee of that organization. And then all the other criteria that we talked about before should be met for those virtual workplace settings. In the current system for that, the career development experience, really for any of the professional learning components that we just outlined, this is what it looks like in the current system, where you have the title, the description. And so that's what's going to be really key here, is that description needs to include all of the components that were mentioned on the previous slides, so that we have a full picture of what exactly is happening within those different, either career exploration or the team-based challenge or the career development experience. So the only difference when you're entering this information, and the PWR system acts wonderfully for this part, where it tallies up, like, did they actually list 2 career development? Did they or well, not career exploration, or 2 team-based challenges to get, again, those green check marks? When you do your career development experience, you have to put the hours in, and then it cross-checks that to ensure that you have described or offered the opportunity for the students to reach those 60 hours. So that's what it currently looks like in the system. And as far as in the new system, this is direct result of quite a few of you who have brought this to my attention, especially for those who have been entering information into this. They've talked about, well, is there a way for you to have the team-based challenges, for example, that could be a standalone page where we could put them all in, because sometimes those team-based challenges are across multiple pathways. So yes, we're going to do that. And the same thing with the career development experience. You'll have a dedicated page where you can build those out. And then when you're actually building your career pathway plan, you will be able to just check which one you want to change. So that way you don't have to go into each plan every year and change it. You could just change it on the maintenance page, is what the team calls it, and then it will update it into your plan for you. So those are just some changes, again, in the new system that are a direct result of all of your feedback, which I greatly appreciate whenever you give me comments on, hey, it would be a little easier, Heather, if we did it this way. So those are things to take into consideration and things that we're going to look at moving forward. So the future questions on this would be the career development experience role, the descriptions of the student's role, the name of the partner, the technical competencies and those essential skills that are assessed, the length of the experience, the course code, and where students paid for the work. So it pretty much mirrors exactly what we're asking now, just asking again for a little more information regarding the competencies that will be assessed, and the opportunity to name that partner organization, which is available in the current system. Okay, that's a lot, I know, but we'll pause here and see if we have questions or anything like that.
So I've got the questions, and
okay.
And I'm gonna try and again, we probably won't go through all of these questions right now.
Sure.
I've already got ideas about maybe where through our work on the NIU Illinois CTE project team alongside the ISB CTE team, where we may be able to offer some professional development, for example,
Absolutely.
on early college credit more generally, more broadly. We've got some significant expertise on our team that we can bring to bear, for example, for that. So I'm working to kind of group the questions. And again, if you asked a question and we don't ask it, if we've got time, we'll absolutely come back to it, or and we will be taking all of these questions, and both the agency team and our NIU team working with them will try and ensure we get answers out there. Well, I do want to provide context real quickly with two things. These are things that I've kind of learned quite a bit about in the 3.5 years that I've been in this role and working with ISB on multiple projects, as well as IBHE and ICCB. One is, and I don't know the answer, I don't know that Heather knows the answer, we'll get to it in just a second on the time frame with the IWAS system. But what I can tell you, and for those of you that don't know me, I was responsible for 10 years for data uploads in 2 different districts and to ISB for all of the different systems, student and staff. And so one of the things that I'm watching happen is this development of the IWAS system is going very quickly, actually, at this point. Once it got started, it has happened very, very quickly and been a big priority for the agency. So I do want to call out both Heather and the team, the data team working on that, and give them credit where that credit is due. There's 2 other pieces of context I want to mention, and one is something I feel like that maybe we can say as partners to everybody in the situation, and that's ideally for districts that already have offered endorsements, the rules and the system would have been available in the 2019-2020 school year, for example. No question, absolutely. On the flip side, the vast majority of districts in the state and students, high school students that are served by those districts are actually still at the early stages of this process. And so accelerating it now and trying to get those rules done and get the system aligned with that, built up within the systems that we all normally use in our school districts to upload data to will be helpful for that. And so I just want to acknowledge that pain point. And the last thing I want to do is say again, I will personally, thank Heather for what she's done with the office hours. That was literally a Heather initiative. And so while we've got a lot of, we're going to look at the general questions here and try and hit all those. As you have some individual questions, that's exactly what those office hours are for. And so we want to encourage everybody to take advantage of those and say, hey, here's our situation. Here's the course we're thinking of, and here's why we're thinking of that. And jumping into those office hours is the best way to get those things taken care of. And so I just want to share that, and again, give credit, because I certainly know, and that in my role in the school district, maybe I wasn't always as quick to give credit to ISB as a general group, and that's easy and understandable to do. So with that, the first thing, Heather, and you may not have answers to all of these. So with that said, tell us what you can tell us. But the first thing is, when will the new system go live? Because obviously a lot of today focused on the system, so people have questions about that.
Right. So I can't give you a timeline on that. I can tell you what the status is right now. So they have built out all of the questions, and they are getting ready to put that into demo mode, which would mean that I would be able to go in and take a look and run through it and see where there's hiccups and do we need more screens here and what needs to be saved. So once that's done, then it's a matter of, all right, data transfer and what could be transferred from the current system into the new system. And then it's gaining access and what that's going to look like within Iowa. So I would envision this coming in at a district level, that someone, district representatives would start that off and then would have to provide just as you do with any other Iowa's application. So I wish I could give you a time frame, but I just don't know yet until I can get into the demo site and take a look at what it looks like. I want it to be functional, and I want it to be working for all of you and easy to transition. So I don't have a time frame on that. But it is a priority, as Jason said. That's something that's worked on every single week. I have meetings with them on getting that and what they need. So, yeah.
So one of the questions that's kind of circulated around there is, should we be entering stuff into the old system? And Heather, part of what I will also focus you on in that is what's going on in my head, and I'll ask you to react to this too, is, where does what graduating class we think our first group of students who are going to earn an endorsement maybe fall into your answer with that too?
I absolutely say yes, you should be entering information, even if you were 2 or 3 years out from actually issuing the endorsement. Knowing that you have that information in the current system and that it's there for you and it can be transferred over, I think that that's crucial. And I really, honestly, even though I know you can put it all out on paper, I think it really does add something when you start to put it in there and you see the specific questions that need to be addressed. So that helps. And again, I have quite a few districts that use the platform just as that starting point, knowing that they're years out from doing that, but it allows them to see, this is what I need to ask and this is what I need to enter in. So I think it's very valuable to do that. Yeah. And it helps me to monitor as well what your progress is. And so I can, pop in there and take a look and see what's going on for that. So yes, I definitely think so. And I strongly suggest that you have the new guidebook. I wish I could say that video and everything was on there today, but it's not, unfortunately. But that guidebook really will walk you through, and it will show you how you can add those new components for the new platform in there. So then you've got the whole thing there. And it certainly does assist with the conversations that need to occur as you build those platforms, or as you build those programs, the plans.
So one of the things we talked about with this too was the recertification, which is something that's been talked about for the last couple of years now in theory, and now it'll start to take a shape. So when and how will we need to first do recertification? For example, is that a process if my school district offered an endorsement in IT? We had 4 kids earn that endorsement last year. We know we've got 7 students right now, 12th graders on track to earn it. Do I need to do something now this year to recertify?
Okay, so what I would recommend for that, I know that I have received quite a few of the projected numbers from you, and I have not responded to those intentionally. So this was not, but not as a slight to any of you. I wanted to wait until we have this webinar so that you could see the different components, so that it would offer you an opportunity to go back and ensure that those are part of your plan, so that I have that information. So as I start this review, even if you've issued endorsements in the past, I would, when you submit your district projections, that would be that assurance that that plan is still valid, that is still the premise that you're under as far as your team-based challenges, your career development experience, career exploration, the coursework even. That's the verification as it stands now. So when I receive those, even though I can see that you received that endorsement the year before, I still go back into your plans and I take a look, and just to make sure that perhaps there was a course change that you didn't catch, that something was updated. So I do take a look at every one of your plans and ensure that that's what's being. So you may see some responses back, like, please go in and take a look at your team-based challenge and give me a little more information on this or that. So, or your career development experience. But that is how we're going to function, basically, as that recertification, that if I receive that district projection from you, that's your way of saying, yes, this is the plan we're going with, and these are the projected number of students that we have for this.
Okay, a couple of related timeline and questions around this. So one is, if a pathway endorsement, it's almost like the example I just gave, has already been approved in the current platform, what do we need to do to get it to when the new platform is up, or to get it reapproved? Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, so that is the plan. That's a question actually the IT team asked me of what that's going to look like. So the plan is, when we do the data transfer and we see what that's going to look like and all of that information, as I said, in the new platform, it will basically unlock every year, and you'll have to verify that that plan is correct. So that's what I would envision is going to occur the first time out when we do the data transfer, that it'll be sitting in the new platform, and you'll have to go in and click the confirmation. You would just review the information that's there and then hit, yes, this is accurate, this is correct. And then it stays there for you. And I would be able to then have that report of what has been approved and so forth. So I think right now that's what we're leaning towards, that. Yes.
Great. And then what do deadlines look like for this? Can you help us understand what that looks like? Yeah.
So as far as access to the current platform, there isn't a deadline per se. So when you receive the and I know, like I said, they're coming in fast, so I do my best to try to get those invites out to you. But getting access to the platforms, and that is from your initial application. And then my goal for those that have done the district projections already is by the end of this month, you will have my response back. So if your plan is approved, you'll get your letter, and you'll get the seal that would go on the student's transcripts. So I really, on my end, I would say there isn't a set deadline for when your plans have to be approved, unless you do have students that are going to be receiving those endorsements. So quite a few just have plans that are sitting in there that have been approved without the intention of issuing those to any students for a few years from now. So I think deadline-wise, it really is a conversation of when do you plan to issue those endorsements for those students, and then we can kind of work from there. I do know that once it's into the new platform, that probably will be monitored a little more frequently, and we could put that in there because they could close it off and cut things off.
So if it's this year,
yes,
it's probably best to get those in no later than around spring break time for the
Yeah,
students
I
you
would
think
think
are
so.
on track.
Yeah.
And again, if you're planning for your current 8th graders and you know you've got a plan, you can also be submitting those plans
Correct.
for approval and being out ahead of that, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Great. Talking about the seal, there's a few questions about the seal, and then I want to shift to courses and
Sure.
kind of compartmentalize that. Is the seal electronic? Does it go on a student's transcript? Can a district make it electronic? Does it go on the diploma? Tell us about what that looks like, please.
Yeah, it's basically a what the format is right now. It's a GIF right now, I believe. I think that's what the format is. I'll have to check on that. We can look. And it goes on the student's transcript. I do know that they were looking at potentially taking, right now it's just at the endorsement level, but what they wanted to do was add additional information on that seal. So for example, if you build an education plan, career plan, or pathway plan, which falls under Human and Public Services, your seal for those students would say education and training, or yeah, I believe that's what it is, education and training / dash Human and Public Services. So it's going to look a little different. There are some districts that are taking those and printing them out and then using them as stickers on there. So again, that's something that we're working on and would gladly take suggestions on what works best for you. So please put that into the questions so that I can bring that to the team as well. So.
Yeah, and I had someone just direct message me that they made the seal into a sticker, just like you just said,
Yeah.
and added language, the transcript. I can tell everybody, again, one of the comparisons I've made frequently is to the seal by literacy. I think there's both really important for us to get the word out to our business and community partners. You know, if I own the local bike shop, I'd love to hire someone with an endorsement and a seal by literacy. That's going to probably be a different kind of entry-level employee. With that said, I can also say the year the seal by literacy debuted, I was working in a school district. I was responsible for technology and data, and we actually added a course code for the seal of biliteracy that students who earned it also appeared in the course sequence, because some of the post-secondary institutions, that felt real to them. And so that's something that we can do. And these are the kind of questions that the Career Pathway User Group that Heather talked about briefly earlier, and I will drop the link in for that. If you and your district are not one of the hundreds of districts signed up for the Career Pathway User Group, these are the kinds of things that can be kicked around there, both with districts sharing with one another directly, as is happening a little bit in the chat. And I will be honest, part of the reason we really wanted to use Zoom today and not ISBE's GoToMeeting was so this kind of chat could take place. But for the Career Pathway User Group, in addition to an email listserv that everybody's a part of, there are opportunities. We meet monthly with that group. Today was actually a meeting day that was moved off because many of you had that in your calendar. And so that's another great setting in addition to the office hours to engage in a lot of this conversation. So speaking of kind of collecting stuff up, we have a lot of questions about courses, and my thinking on that is twofold. That the school districts should definitely take advantage of office hours to ask their individual course questions to you. I mean, please keep in mind that in Illinois, we have high schools that range from serving 50 or 60 students to 5,000 students. And so part of Heather's job is to make this work for that full range. And so we do want to, I know that Heather and the rest of the CTE team want to accommodate those kind of differences. So that's one very important thing, I think, with the course questions in particular. The second thing is there may be opportunities, again, for us to add some professional learning opportunities around, around the courses and around like specifically to the career pathways specifically, as well as some of the broader topics related to the courses, like early college credit and looking about that. And I've also just gotten a direct message that's a great call out. For those of you who don't know, and you may be in a school district where you're not aware of this, throughout the state, there are now college and career pathway endorsement coordinators in many regions. And Heather is working directly with that group too. Some of them came into those roles with a lot of knowledge about this. Others of them are learning, but they are on a real accelerated track with their learning. And so those are local resources to help with this work as well on an ongoing basis, in addition to the things we've talked about. And in retrospect, I will take responsibility. That should have been on the resources slide earlier. So good call out about that. And while I'm on that question, will regions be able to apply for a year 2 of the CCP coordinators? Heather, I don't know if you know that answer. Do you know that?
I do not. The grant itself is going, management is going to be turned over to me. That's news for the coordinators now. No, now you know, surprise, as we get ready to do your mid-year reports on that. But those, I don't know. I need to look at that and see. So I will find that out.
So before I go off to academic readiness, which is the next category I want to touch on here with you, I do want to just remind everybody, while I mentioned the resources, again, today's meeting is being recorded. The plan is that the recording will be available. We have dropped the link for the slides into the chat multiple times. And so make sure you've got that. And again, if you're still having issues downloading and printing that, I heard from one person that was after I'd said it worked, and I did test it before I said that, but I'll do more testing. I didn't want to do that now during the meeting. I want to be able to focus on that. So come Monday, you can try again, and hopefully that will work. But in terms of the resources, you will also have for navigating the current PWR Act and data entry system, the new guidebook that Heather has created and the video, and those will be posted on the ISB College and Career Pathway Endorsement website. And I'm going to drop the link for that into the chat right now. And so, and we did not say when the recording will be available, because that will have to be shipped from NIU to ISB, and then ISB has its processes to get it up. But we will start that process. ISB will have access to it by Monday morning. And so that then it will start its way through there. Our goal is to get all of these things. Again, Heather has turned in everything on those resources already, and they are going through those internal ISB processes to get posted, the guidebook and the video. So we want to call out the resources under the if we teach you to fish, kind of vein here. So I do want to, Heather, I don't know if you want to say something, but I do want to go to academic readiness too, because we've got some questions there.
Okay.
So with regards to academic readiness, first, kind of a concrete question. You talked about the CCRI academic indicators. And for those of you who may be less familiar, the college and career readiness indicators are part of the state's accountability plan, the summative designation, and there's 2 components to them. There's an academic component, and then there's a career readiness set of indicators. Do the students need to meet which of the academic indicators do students need to meet? Does attendance count? Does GPA? What can you tell us about that? Where will the rules impact that? What more information can you give us about that at this time?
So if you take a look at, and Jason, that's probably something we need to add, but if you take a look at what the current requirements are for a student to meet both in ELA and in math, then that would fulfill that requirement. It's not taking a look at their GPA or the attendance, because that's a component overall of the college and career ready indicators. So we're looking specifically at just the academic readiness, which includes things like their scores on their SAT, and that could be both the state assessment as well as a national testing assessment that they've done for ACT as well. I know that it incorporates transitional, that, if they've taken a transitional math or transitional English course, if they've taken, I think it's Algebra 2 and various other courses that meet the math, if they've taken a dual credit English, if they've taken a dual credit math that are on the list, if for the ISB code, then that would meet that qualification. I think they have to earn an A, B, or C in that. So if you look at the guidelines for just the academic readiness, the academic components of the college and career readiness indicators, that would provide that evidence. That would show you that that student has met that. And that is something that is reported to schools, as Jason said. So you would have that information, but you can also create your own checklist and know that that student has met that criteria as well.
Sounds good. And last question on that.
Sure.
This one came to me individually, and again, this may be one you can't answer yet, but do we know what parts of that with the IWAS integration may be automated?
Oh, with the new platform?
Yeah. We're looking ahead.
Yeah. No, I don't, but that's definitely something that we can take a look at. I think a lot of that is going to depend on timing of when that's actually determined. So, and if you want to be able to issue that information, I do know the reporting out of those students who have received a pathway endorsement is something that they plan to integrate into that. So you won't have to send me a spreadsheet anymore. There'll be a different way, a streamlined way for that to happen. Because that, in case you didn't know, if a student receives a pathway endorsement, then that gets sent to the SIS team for the purposes of that college and career ready indicator, which then goes into the numbers of students that have met that criteria. So that is something, again, they all kind of play together, and we just need to get them to play together nicely and have that work for you guys.
And then two related questions, actually the same related question, but two that have popped into my direct messages on this. So the question there is, in the meantime, would we as a school district just be reporting like a yes or a no or 1 or a 0 that the student met those if we're doing it manually? Right. Or would we be reporting something in more detail if IWAS can't do that for us?
Okay. So in the current system, for a lot of the components of, if we're talking about the CCRI reports, the College and Career Ready report, indicator report, a lot of those components we are pulling already from SIS. I strongly recommend that you look at, and maybe I'll try to provide this and we can send this out to everyone, but I would recommend that you look on our website under accountability. I believe that it's under one of the components is the CCRI. There's a fantastic webinar that's out there that shows you which components of the academic readiness indicator is already pulled through SIS and which items the schools have to upload. So that's the information that we would be looking at. As far as that yes and no, again, you need to reference that webinar because it's pretty clear cut now that if we have some of that data, but there are specific academic readiness components that the school may need to upload if we can't collect it. But as far as the pathway endorsement itself and receiving that, where we stand now is that for those schools who have been approved and have told me that they are going to be issuing endorsements, I will be sending you a spreadsheet for you to complete, and you submit that back to me, and it has the student name, the student ID, and which endorsement area they have received that endorsement, and then I submit that to the SIS team, and they can upload that into all of the information for the CCRI. So right now, there's no way, again, that's what we talk about in the future to be able to have those interact with each other. But right now, the only way to submit it is by me sending them information to the SIS team.
Another question's just come in, and I'll jump in and take the lead on answering this. Are there any free systems available to pull the data required? Will ISB assisting schools with the data collection, such as funding those systems? So I would say for the CCRIs, that data collection is the CCRI specific items is, well, on the academic side, I'm sorry, let me be very clear. On the academic side, it is primarily either data that would be coming out of a student information system in most districts. And as we know, ISB does not fund local student information systems, and the state legislature, as far as I know, there has not been a move to provide funding to school districts for local student information systems. And I don't remember off the top of my head if that was, I know it's not a top level factor in the evidence-based funding formula, but it may have been considered as part of the evidence-based funding formula. I couldn't answer that for you with any certainty at the moment. And so I do know that there is always ongoing talk. You may be aware that ISB has this year rolled out My Data Dashboard, which is the replacement for Ed 360. That is not so much a data collection tool as a data warehouse and analysis tool, and it's in its earliest phases right now. But the idea there is, while a number of districts throughout the state have purchased their own tools, the idea is that that the agency wants to, in that case, provide something that's available to all districts. And then if a district chooses to spend local funds on something else, they absolutely can do that. But at least there's a certain minimum standard. And so I personally, I will just speak as Jason, and certainly I never speak on behalf of the agency like that, but there are ongoing conversations about ways in which that can happen across a variety of data fields, not just in CTE or in with the career pathway endorsements, but other areas too. So, you know, I can't predict where that will go. Want to comment on a couple of questions about post-secondary institutions.
So I'm
really interesting that there was a question, and then someone else sent me something, I think similar, if I was reading it correctly, about can we get a list of potential post-secondary partners and what they offer? That would probably be better as like an online database to be able to search that, but maybe it could start as a spreadsheet. I will just personally volunteer. I actually have a meeting at 4 o'clock today on an entirely different topic, completely unrelated to this, but with the head of data at IBHE. And I will ask about what that would look like there. And then there would need to be a separate conversation with the community college board. And so what I can promise is I will update Heather on that, and we can address that and see if that might be an easy ask to provide something to get that going. Two timeline questions that I think are really important, Heather. The first one I'm going to try to address, but please jump in.
Okay.
And it was a question about class of 2027, but is something due July 1st, 2025? And so here's my answer. I believe that there's probably a little very understandable confusion. What's due on July 1st, 2025 for school districts other than the Chicago Public Schools, than District 299, is that is when your PACE framework implementation, your 6th through 8th grade PACE framework. So you have to have a PACE framework. It has to be on your website. You have to be using it, and it has to cover 6th through 12th grade. So it moves from 8th grade down to 6th grade. It becomes a requirement. July 1st, 2025 is the day that is due for the 851 school districts that are not CPS. For CPS, that PACE framework implementation is required by July 1st, 2024. And the state agencies, as a collective group, are responsible for publishing a new updated 6th through 12th grade state formatted PACE framework by July 1st, 2023. So that gives CPS 1 year to either adopt that state framework or to create its own version and adopt that. And that gives the rest of the school districts in the state 2 years to do that. So I think that's where the July 1st, 2025 question is coming from. The 2027, and these are both contained in HB 3296. So it is confusing. And that was the legislation that was just passed this past May. The 2027 timeframe is that's your graduating 12th graders. And so it's by the end of the year. So again, there were some questions about this. Realistically, that does mean if your district has not started looking at the career pathway endorsements, and hundreds of districts have not yet, that is okay. But now is definitely the time to start. Because I would say you want to plan fully in place no later than the end of those students' 9th grade year, which would be end of May, early June 2024 for your first endorsement. Now, many districts will find, and some of you will be surprised to find, that your first endorsement may not be a very big lift. There will be some things. I'm not saying it will be easy. You'll probably have to add team-based challenges. You're going to need to check the kinds of experiences kids are getting. You might need to extend some internship opportunities from where you have them. But that's kind of timeline wise. And that's exactly the kind of thing we talk about in the professional learning we offer, as well as in the career pathway user group. So please take advantage of those.
I do think, Jason, can I clarify one thing?
Please.
I do think that there is language in there, which I think is part of the confusion on the July 1st, 2025, where it says that the school districts have that they need to elect to implement a pathway endorsement or do the opt-out. So I think that's where that's coming from. And I believe, well, my thoughts on the reason why there's that July 1st, 2025 would be that would be the latest that you would want to start to build your platform for that that pathway for the graduating class of 2027. So exactly. I think that decision has to be made by July 1st, 2025, if you're going to opt out or if you're going to do that.
So the other timeline question that I noted was related to the rules, and two questions related to the rules. One is, do you have a sense of what the timeline might look like? And when the rules are posted for public comment, where will that be posted? Will that be posted on the normal ISB rules page? And in what ways will the agency communicate that those are posted? Newsletter, EFE directors, how will that all happen?
It'll follow that same procedure. I do not have a timeline. The rules have the proposed rules are still being just finalized on that, and then it will have to be submitted, and then it goes through a whole process. So I really don't have a timeline on what that will look like. But as far as the public comment, that will be something that could it definitely will be going out via email that it's available, and in the weekly message and so forth. So they'll get that out there for public comment.
Yeah, and great call out from Cassie. Cassie, thank you for dropping the EFE directory in the chat. If you're here from a school district and you're like, I don't know what an EFE is or who they are, every school district in the state is in an education for employment system region. You have a director, you can reach out to them. You have a superintendent or another administrator who sits on their board. So that is in there. Thank you so much, Cassie, for those great call outs. Again, on the opt-out, before we leave the rules, we've had a couple other questions come in since we addressed it earlier in the meeting. We don't know exactly what the opt-out process will look like. We wouldn't know that until after the rules are official. That would be a next step. So my gut says that's no earlier than this summer and probably earlier in the first half of next school year. I'm also I've expected since the legislation was moving through the legislature that will require, it may say it in there, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it will require board action. The one thing Tanya is putting in the chat is if you're smaller and if they'll only ever be able to do one, can you just do the one and use the opt-out? That's a great question. And so, yep, that's a great question. So
and we'll have record of that, so that's great because we can add that too. Yep, that's perfect.
Yep. And Patty has just dropped in. If you don't know who your community college is, that's one important step. Everybody is in a community college district. Community colleges are organized into districts just like schools are organized into districts. But there are times you will have a post-secondary partner that may be a different community college. For example, there are a number of Chicagoland community college regions that work with Triton College, for example, on autos. And so that you may have a post-secondary partner, even in the community college space, that's different than your community college. And so that's why I do want to advance those. I'm today brought up some really good questions that we can help start moving with the post-secondary agencies to see what's already available regarding who they are and what degree and credential programs they have that might make life a little bit easier for school districts to identify who would be a good post-secondary partner for that and who contact information is too, right? That's always, it can be a tricky part of that process. So With that said, I did want to, again, just wrap up with, there was one other thing, because this is a little different than the courses themselves. So while we'll continue to address the courses, but the language is around, so we've got a couple of terms in there that you have used today, Heather. We have 2 years, that the course sequence needs to be a minimum of 2 years. I know there are course sequences that have been approved that are longer. We know we also have the factor of at least 6 hours of early college credit.
Right.
Thinking of high school, we have language, wait, let me add, we have language around competency-based schools who may not be offering credit in the same ways as a traditionally operating high school using Carnegie units would be. And so what is the relationship between traditional high school credits to the 2-year requirement? Like if their credits don't match up with time, maybe it's a half credit class, but it's a full year. I don't know, I'm making that up because I only know what I have in the question here. But for example, would that be, how would we handle that? Do you know what an answer to that might look like?
No, I need to take a look at what, let me dig into that a little bit more on how that could be explained, perhaps in the description of the course, like in the current platform, or what that would look like. So we would have to kind of play it out that way. But that's a good question. So if those are occurrences that are happening, yes, then we would need to build that in or figure out a way for that to be reflected, like I said, in the course description, so that we could have a clear idea of what's occurring at that school.
So, so that would be also a great topic then for an office hours visit, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Nick just dropped into the chat with an area career center, a regional program, and again, that area career center item that's offered, there may be other variations on that. Someone asked about if a student's taking a class at a community college, and I think there, again, we've got the articulated credit, we've got the dual enrollment that are already included. There are also school districts. There's a region I'm thinking of that's got multiple people in the room right now that are doing regional programs, right? And so I may be going to another school for part of the day or all of the day in another district even. And so those can benefit from some of those same provisions that Heather has shared today, I would think, Heather, especially if like the time intensity is there, like what Nick is describing in his comments here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Again, I do want to call out, I think there's a couple of real key things that we will, in addition to getting information out, the stuff Heather has already promised. I think we see a clear request on 3 different things that I'm seeing that I want to call out. We continue to offer overviews of what the career pathway endorsements are. We also can work with regions to do those. So EFE directors, if you want to get together as a region and look at something custom for your region, that is something we can do at the region level. We're happy to do that. We've also got the college and career pathway endorsement coordinators who can help locally with that on an ongoing basis. But that's one area where there's been just understandably a lot of questions about kind of the career pathway endorsement process overall and the components of it. We know we've got work to do with continuing to provide support around early college credit. Our teammate on the NIU side, Rodrigo, is here. Rodrigo and I meet monthly with ILLICEP, our state's leading dual credit, dual enrollment organization. I think in partnering with them and in doing the stuff that we're doing with ISB, we can maybe add some professional development. If we do that, that would be added to the professional development calendar that we shared earlier. And we will drop that link into the chat again before we go to help get people the information you need about that generally. And then again, the the last piece here, all of the questions about individual courses are great questions, and we're happy to discuss those with you, but really your best spot for that is going to be office hours, I think.
Yes.
Heather, anything else from you?
No, nothing, but just thank you for attending today and for all of the questions, and we'll make sure that we get back to you with all of that, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you.
Well, with that, those of you who are still here, we're happy to let you go. I think a few of us can probably stay on for a few more minutes if you want to chat. It's a large group to have kind of individual chats. We will get the video out and the other resources out as soon as the agency can do so.